In one of your videos, you mentioned that if you're a beginner, you should use a metronome.
Yeah.
So I downloaded one, but how do you know what to set them at? Like what the speed, like how do you know?
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. This channel is the place to go if you want to grow when you've hit a musical plateau. So this question was left by a subscriber, and it was, do you have any tips and tricks as to how to play with a metronome? Just a place to start, because a lot of people say, hey, if you want to work on your rhythm, work with a metronome. And you're like, great, but where do I start? This video has two parts where I'll teach you 4 tips on using a metronome, and the second half contains examples and demonstrations. You'll also meet Rich. He's one of my Skype students that let me use footage from our lesson because he asked some great questions about using a metronome. A metronome is a device that helps you keep the beat by a series of clicks that you can adjust to either a slower or faster tempo. BPM stands for beats per minute, or the number of clicks you'll hear in a span of 60 seconds. Here are some tips and tricks. Here we go. Number 1, don't be afraid to start slow. And I think that's a really easy thing to do, is that you start way too fast and then you start feeling like you're off of the click right away, right from the get-go.
Now, in one of your videos, you mentioned that if you're a beginner, you should use a metronome.
Yeah.
So I downloaded one, but how do you know what to set them at? Like what the speed, like how do you know?
What I would do is start at a slow and manageable pace where you can play everything evenly and well. And so it doesn't matter what you start at. So if
okay. So if you set it to 60 and I can play with it, then I can go there and then move up like to 70 as I'm learning it. And if I play 70 and I can't do it, you're saying you can go 60, 50. It really doesn't matter. Just it's trying to get you to do the same thing over and over in a rhythm. Is that correct?
That's right, because when you practice with the metronome, yeah, you can eventually speed up, but if you start off too fast, what happens is that you start to overwhelm yourself with a lot of information, and then you end up becoming frustrated, and then you start making mistakes.
That was me.
I know, me too. I have a tendency
I was like, I need lessons.
So start slow. Make sure that it's at a pace that you can play each and every single note in time. If you can't do that, and then you're still playing too fast, then slow the metronome down. Number 2, along with starting slowly, make sure that you don't move on until you've mastered your riff, your melisma, your strumming pattern at a slower pace, and it is nice and steady with the click. Because I always tell my students, sloppy slow is sloppy fast. What I mean is that if you don't really try to clean up that riff, if you really don't try to clean up that rhythm and the strumming pattern at a slow pace, as soon as you speed it up, it's just going to be a sloppy mess. So master that strumming pattern at a slow, manageable pace, and then increase the BPM.
Okay, how do you know when you're listening to that metronome? I got confused because I don't know, like, let's say like I got lost and I lost the chord and I need to pick back up.
Yeah.
How do I know when beat 1 actually starts? It's just going like 4 beats. So it doesn't matter, just grab a beat and...
Some metronomes have a feature where you can emphasize a certain count to help you keep you on track. So it could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2.
Okay, but otherwise if I'm just practicing, trying to do it to the beat, it doesn't matter which one I really start on.
No, and I think that's a really good question. That's an excellent question, because what the metronome does is that it just cycles the beat, and if you don't have any emphasis on any beat, you just grab one and you choose like, all right, here's my count 1.
and just go.
Yeah, and you count in your head first. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you look at your music. And then you establish that beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you try to play whatever you have to play. Just to allow yourself to not have it to be perfect, just allowing yourself to think about, okay, so if I get off of the beat, then take a rest, take a step back, and then find that internal beat, and then start strumming. Increase by 4 or 4 BPM when you're trying to increase the speed of a riff, strumming pattern, or a run. what I suggest is that once you have established a good, clean rhythm, whether picking or strumming or whatever you're working on, then increase the BPM by 4. If you increase it by 1 or 2, 3, you're not really going to feel it. 4, you slightly feel it. And then you increase it by 4 more, 4 more, 4 more. Once you have mastered it, you're going to feel a slight difference, but not so much,
where you just feel like, oh my goodness, this is too fast, and then you lose your rhythm.
Start slow, build up by 4. Okay, let's get into something very, very practical. Whether you're strumming, picking, or just counting off a piece, doesn't matter what instrument you have. I'm going to be demonstrating on this really cool vintage ukulele replica from Ohana. It's a gift. This video is not sponsored. And I'm going to be using a metronome on my phone. You can find lots of free apps that don't have a lot of ads on them. This one I have is called Pulse Metronome, and it is for my iPhone. I'm not really sure. I think they have it for Android as well. But you can find lots of different metronomes where you can change the time signature, and you can also change the beat. Where do you feel the beat? Where do you feel the click? And you can adjust the speed. I'm going to start at 4/4, so we have 4 beats per measure. The quarter note gets the beat. I'm using that because that's known as common time, or the most common time. Sometimes at the beginning of pieces or exercises and etudes, you will see that there is a little note and an equal sign, and then you'll see a number. That is the BPM that you should be able to play the piece. If you can't play it at that pace, then you slow it down. I'm starting at 75 because it's nice and slow, and I'm going to first find my quarter note. Okay, so I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what I have my students do is that first I have them find the quarter note, and then I have them subdivide. So I take that quarter note and then I start finding my eighth notes, the spaces in between. The number one problem that my students have is not really necessarily playing on the beat, it's the spaces in between. They rush the quarter notes more often than not, or even the half notes, the whole notes. Let's see here, let's try quarter note. They go 1, 2, 3, 4. They start rushing it, or it's behind where it's 1, 2, 3, 4. And it can be a little difficult if you're just working with quarter notes. Subdivide. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to push play on my metronome. We will find quarter notes, and then we're going to find the eighth note. You ready? 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Do you see how I was able to play things just a little bit more evenly when I was able to establish that subdivision, that eighth note? Even if I was just playing quarter notes, having that eighth note subdivision really does help. 1, to establish an internal beat, and 2, you're holding each note for however much time it's allotted. Once they start feeling that they're just a little bit off, I have them take a pause, listen for that beat, find their quarter note again. So let's say they messed up, and that's okay. Have them, if they lose that beat, then establish your rhythm again. 2, 3, eighth note subdivision. 1 and 2 and 3. Try again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. To take it a step further, you have 16th notes. Okay, so let's try that. If I'm counting off a piece, especially if I notice that the smallest subdivision in a piece or a riff is going to have 16th notes, then I'm going to first find my quarter note, my eighth note, then my 16th notes, and then I'm going to try to, even though there are certain notes or certain strumming parts where it's not all 16th notes, I keep that rhythm so that it acts as a placeholder in my brain. So I don't rush any of the parts where I'm holding a note longer than the other parts where I actually hold them, or just strum them a little faster, pluck them a little faster, sing them faster, play them faster, whatever you would like to establish, or whatever instrument you're working on. So let's try that. I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. So now I'm going to be at 60 BPM. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, eighth note. 1, and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 16th note. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And so I went into kind of like a strumming pattern there. But do you hear how I'm subdividing from smallest to the 8th note to the 16th note? Helps me keep my place. You're right on, like you're really focusing on the downbeat, versus like, how fast can I do this? It's getting there though. It's getting there. You ready? 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Hey, better. Let's clean that up just a little bit here. So this next tip is for somebody that is struggling with subdivision. Let's say, for example, if you have, 61 BPM and you're just still struggling with that tempo with the 8th notes or even the 16th notes, what I suggest you do is that you double that BPM. So we're at 60 BPM right now. I'm on my phone and I'm going to double it. And so 60 plus 60 is 120. And then now each click is going to be an 8th note instead of a quarter note. Okay, so that you have that click established for you. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and down, up, down, up, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, up, down, up. Island strum. Do you hear that? You could even take it a step further. So if you were going to have 16th notes, guess what you got to do? 3 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... And so you have to increase the BPM just twice what you had before if you're still struggling with keeping your 8th notes, and then from there you can find your 16th notes. So that's another way that you can use your metronome, not only just establishing the quarter notes first, but you could establish the 8th notes as well. You just have to make sure that in your brain that you know that you're starting at a faster pace and that is not your quarter note, that is going to be a subdivided note. That metronome is really going to be a good anchor for you. If you want more tips and tricks, more free videos, vocal lessons, finger picking, guitar, uke, anything like that, I'm going to put that in the cards all around me. And don't forget to hit subscribe and the like button. Really helps me out, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye. How sweet the sound.
You make it seem so easy.
I've worked so hard, you have no idea.